All right. So I will let you introduce yourself since I have yet to say your last name correctly.
Sara Kharatyan.
Do you pronounce the K?
No, the K is silent. It doesn't make any sense.
And you are the owner, operator, mastermind behind Crown and Heart, which is jewelry. I'll let you describe that too.
Yeah, well, it's ceramic jewelry. That's when people ask me, I say I make ceramic jewelry. Yeah, it's mostly porcelain, but I throw a little stoneware in there, and it's just, like fun, colorful, kind of whimsical accessories.
How did you start doing that? What led to earrings? And I mean, you have a significant Etsy presence and you're
Yeah.
always at all of these craft fairs and you're in stores nationwide at this point at boutiques and things, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah, I do a lot of wholesale art festivals and art fairs. And then, yeah, online. I've never been a jeweler. I wouldn't even consider myself like a ceramicist. I've always been a painter, and that was my emphasis in college. And I actually did like a lot of portrait work. I honestly don't know why I started making jewelry other than I taught for 7 years. I didn't make anything for myself in those 7 years, even though I thought I would. Like in college, I had this grand idea that I'll have the summers off. I'll make stuff. I never made anything.
7 years, even as an elementary school art teacher,
Yes.
never was it just were you acclimating to
I
the
think it's just like teaching is so encompassing. Like it's so draining. I just didn't have anything left when I would come home from school, and especially then when I had kids,
yeah.
especially. I just didn't have any creative energy left. You're just tired, just plop down on the couch. And yeah, like I would make stuff occasionally, like as a gift or like, like a personal project. But it's weird because in college, I took all these studio classes. So I was like painting or making art, 8+ hours a day. Like, and then you get a teaching job, and I make stuff with the kids, but that was
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
I needed something. I felt like I needed to get back into something, and I needed something that I could do like in really small doses.
Sure.
Like not a painting. Paintings take hours and hours, and you're working on one painting. And I felt like I started stuff and never finished it. So I don't know. I just thought I'm going to make jewelry and I'm going to use clay.
What was the first piece of jewelry you made? Do you remember?
Um, I don't know. I mean, the first stuff I made was very, very ugly. Because like I said, like I'm not really a ceramicist. So I was experimenting. I bought some porcelain because porcelain's white. I'd
Mhm.
never used it before. And I just started cutting shapes out and like experimenting and using random glazes that I had at school. And I did figure it out eventually. But yeah, the first year was some very ugly stuff.
How long did it take you to kind of move into a space of wanting to sell it and making and monetizing it? What was the road to that?
Well, I started out that way because my thinking was, all right, I had gone to like art fairs and things like that, and I was always so impressed. And, when I was a kid, I felt like the message was starving artist. Like, you can't have art as a career in
Right.
itself.
No, same. Yeah, you can't be a musician, you can't,
Right.
act, you
Because that's
can't do those
silly.
things.
Like, one in a million people make it.
Right. It's stratospheric
Um, yeah,
success or nothing.
totally.
Yeah.
But then, social media came about, and that kind of changed a lot. Now anyone can have a career as an artist or musician or a content creator. You've got this, you don't have to be in a studio. You don't have to be in a gallery. Like you've got millions of people at the push of a button. So, yeah, I guess I thought, what can I do? What can I sell? because I thought that I needed to make it a business to
Mhm.
motivate myself. So I made some pieces, I photographed them, I started applying for like art fairs, and I thought like I'll do one every season, I'll do one in the fall, one in the winter. It'll be a hobby. It'll motivate me to make things because I'll have this deadline, like, oh, I gotta make inventory for this.
Yeah,
Um, and then it just grew beyond what I expected. It just kind of exploded. Like I just thought it was going to be like a little hobby, like a little side hustle.
sure, sure. And so when you say it exploded, what is it compared to your expectations? Like, qualify that a little bit, please.
Okay, well, I guess the first show I did, like my goal was to just make back the money I had put in. And then I made like a very sizable profit, and that got me excited. And so
Yeah.
yeah, so then I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna sign up for more of these. And then I mainly, that was like the first couple years mainly was just doing in-person events. And then I think I got like a wholesale client or two just locally. And so I really focused on that for a while, like all the years blurred together. But I did that for about 3 years, just kind of on the side of teaching
Mhm.
before it became really unsustainable, to where I would be working, 4 or 5 hours at night, like after my kids went to bed.
Oof, yeah, that's not
Yeah.
sustainable.
Yeah. Trying to fill orders and stuff. And so that's when I started job sharing so I could teach part-time. This is my 6th year job sharing. So
Holy smokes.
yeah, time flies.
Yeah, no, I think that was the first year the boys were in kindergarten.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And now, like, I'm at this is my last year at Graydon, and I'm
Yeah. It's
like,
heartbreaking.
I know. Do you come from a pretty creative family? Do other people in your
Um,
family make?
No. Well, I mean, my parents know. I'm my mom. When I was a kid, she would do like I think she took a painting class. She did like Bob Ross style
Mhm.
landscapes. But my dad, I would not qualify him as a creative person. My dad and my brother are both engineers. So they're very like analytical minded, not creative minded. But my grandparents are really creative. I feel like they were probably the ones who like encouraged creative things in us.
How
But
so
it also, I feel like it was just kind of like a natural inclination towards art.
how did your grandparents encourage you?
I mean, I spent a lot of time with them as a kid. We're very close to them. I just feel like they always had art supply. They had like a cart of art supplies. My grandma, she sews. She's like I would say she's a fiber artist. I don't think she would call herself that. I used to make things with her. She called it attic time because we would go up in her attic, and it was more than just quilting. Like she does make quilts, but also she'll make like fiber sculptures. Here, I'm gonna grab one, I'll show
Yes,
you.
please.
She does like a lot of applique type stuff. Like she made
Oh,
this.
wow. That's beautiful.
And yeah,
I
I
love
mean,
the
she's a
charm.
talented person.
Is it a charm that's hanging off of it? What's the little metal piece?
Yeah, it's got like this little fighter button here, and then like
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she's got other things stitched on here in this
Uh-huh.
thing. It's like a locket. And then she's got like it's all applique with like free stitching, and
That's
there's
gorgeous.
beadwork on the moon and stuff. Yeah, like embroidery. She just does like a mix of things.
Yeah,
And I'm pretty sure she stitched this all on like old towels
that is
like
incredible.
kitchen towels. Yeah, like she's really creative. And then my grandpa too, he does like woodworking and all kinds of things. So I would say they are like the other creative people in our family.
When you decided to go to school, what was the decision and conversation around going to an art school? Did
Well, I
you feel
didn't go to an
like
art school.
oh, why did I think you did?
I thought about it. No, I went to Missouri State. I did my program was art education. I mean, I did take a lot of art it was mostly studio classes. But I did think about going to art school. I did like a pre-college program at the Milwaukee Institute for Art and Design. I thought about going to an art and design school, but again, I'm like a risk averse person. I actually kind of still think this, that I didn't need an art degree to be an artist. And
Sure.
also that it wasn't a very practical degree. At that point, I did want to teach. Like I was interested in working with kids. So it was kind of a combo. I was like, I'm going to get this art ed degree because it's useful. But I did think at the time that I would also like be a working artist. And that didn't happen for a long time.
At the time, what kind of medium did you think you'd be working in? What were you hoping to do?
I mean, I always thought I would pursue painting. That was the bulk of my work, my student work was portraiture and painting, oil painting and some mixed media stuff, but that was my emphasis. And
What
I
were
still
you
do that. I mean, like I paint every piece of jewelry I make, but it's more they're tiny, so I can do it in one sitting, you know? I can sit and I could sit and work on a painting all day, but I don't have time. When I started, I was teaching full time, 8 hours a day. So I felt like I needed to do something that I could make something small, something little that I could do in an hour or two at night.
with carving out time when you are working 8 hours and things like that? What is the creative practice? What does that provide you that, those 7 years when you were just making with the
Mm.
kids and you weren't really doing much for yourself? What is it? How does that fulfill you?
That's just like a need, like creative people just have that need to make things. Like and it's not even just art. Like I just feel like even if it's making a cake or making a birthday banner or making a card for something, like I just feel inclined to do it. It's just like a feeling of satisfaction, I guess. Like I made this, I did this. It just feels like something I need to do.
When you're working with kiddos, how do you kind of see that manifest in different ages? Like the kids who you were like, oh man, this guy, this one's got creativity abounding, as opposed to maybe a kid who is probably going to go more in the engineer math circuit. Not to say that those can't also be creative fields, but do you,
Right.
when people are that young and little, can you still see those sort of
Oh
patterns
yeah.
of interest?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, kindergarten, I was just talking to my job share partner about this because kindergarten, first grade, second grade, like those age limits, like pretty much every kid in there likes art. They
Mhm.
want to come, they want to make things. You could definitely pick out like kids who are art brained, right brained, like they just get it. It's easy for them. And then other kids might have to work at it more. But I would say like 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, you do start to see kids who are like, I don't like this. I'm not good at this. This isn't, and that's not to say that they aren't still successful. They start to become more self-aware of like the product they're making versus the product their peers are making. They start comparing themselves. It's hard because I personally think everybody has something, some creative outlet thing that is their thing. In elementary level, like we do a lot of painting and drawing and sculpting, and that might not this like you talked about your Andrew, like loving stop motion, and like that's an art form, but like
Like,
do I have the resources to expose them to photography and animation and all these other creative outlets? Like I wish I did. I try to do a little bit of everything so they can find their thing, you know.
so when you get into those older elementary school students, as they're dissatisfied or comparing what they've made to somebody else's, are they starting to focus more on what they make and less on just how they can express themselves?
It's hard because, you know, like we have a curriculum and we follow the curriculum. So they have assignments. And with those older grades, like I really try to give them creativity in the assignment to like make what they want to make. But they still have to, demonstrate certain skills or certain. The biggest thing is, I think that some kids, and I don't know if this is a generational thing too, but
Sure.
they just can't think of idea. Like they don't have the capacity to be like, I thought of this idea and now I'm gonna execute it. Like their mind almost, it's like they're just blank. Okay, fifth grade, we're making mini golf courses like out of clay. So they pick a theme, it can be anything. And they make this little miniature mini golf course, like the art course at the Nelson. Basic, that was our inspiration. There's a kid in every class that made the example I showed them. Like they just made what I made, even though I told them they could make anything. It's like
Yeah.
and they just can't. And then I had some kids who came up with an idea and they like drew it. They're like, oh, I'm going to do football because I love football. And they drew out this idea of this football mini golf. And then when they made it, there's nothing football on. Like they couldn't execute the idea that they had, even with my help. I don't know. I think that's the barrier. It's like some kids realizing that like, wow, this is actually hard to do.
Yeah,
Like,
there's skill piece,
um,
not just the vision in your head, like,
yeah,
to get that. Yep,
uh-huh.
and I'm sure too, just being tiny and young with, just recently developing fine
Mhm.
motor skills, there's a
Yeah,
lot of challenges with, what they're
for
envisioning and
sure.
what they're capable of
And I
putting out.
think a big part of it too is like some of those kids, the biggest divider is like kids who do art stuff at home and kids who don't.
Yeah,
Because, you get kindergartners coming in and some of them they've painted, they draw, they do all these, they have Play-Doh, they have all these things at home. And then I have some kids who are like, I never use scissors. I'm not allowed to use scissors.
yeah,
And so I think that's the biggest divide is just the experiences they've had because, you kids who draw all the time are just naturally going to be better at it than kids
right,
who
it's practice, it's just how that
never
works.
pick up a pencil and sketch. Yeah. And that's okay because everybody has their thing. Some people some people don't want to be an artist. They don't like art. That's okay. Just like anything else, just comes easier to some kids. And then you have some kids who it doesn't come naturally or easy to them, but they want to. They want to. So they
Yeah.
work at it.
Yeah, for me, that's the most admirable. I personally grew up in
Mhm.
a space of there wasn't a lot of grit. It was a lot of you're either naturally good at this and you're capable to go off and do it or pick something different until you find
Ah,
something
yeah.
that you're good at. And there wasn't a lot of here's support, here's guidance, here's how you develop a skill, here's
Mm,
dealing with the sucking at it part. Like we all really hate to suck at things in this house, and I'm trying to
yeah.
we've been trying to shift that culture a little bit to more of like a yay, you failed. Like you learned something. Now
Yeah.
you have a better way to go about it instead of just the frustration and walk away piece.
That's really important, I think, a really important piece of it. Because even if you are naturally sort of gifted or minded towards creative things, it does still take work to develop it. I definitely see that a lot in kids where they will surprise themselves and be really successful at something that we did. And then going forward, you can just see like that they are much more motivated to like try harder at the next thing.
Oh, I
And sometimes it's the most random. Like last year, I did sewing with fourth grade and they just loved it. Like
I
we
heard
made
about
little,
that.
yes. And
Yeah,
that it was like everybody's favorite thing.
yeah, he came back from his dad's with stuffed animals that he had used hot glue to construct it, but using
Uh-huh.
what you guys had talked about. And so I'm gonna try and get him. He really wants to make his own stuffed animals, so I'm
Cool.
try and get him set up on the sewing machine and kind of show him how to do a basic inside out, flip it,
Yeah.
stuff it
That's
situation.
what we did. Yeah,
Yeah.
we made like little Yetis. Did you see his little Yeti?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, but they loved that. And it surprised me like some kids who just had really checked out of art were like, I love this.
That's gotta be so gratifying, confined by the curriculum, if you will, but still to be able to introduce people to things
Yeah.
and
Well, yeah, our curriculum is mostly, it's more about like the thought, the thought process of art, like brainstorming an idea and then executing it, like researching materials to find out like what, I mean, it's a very open-ended curriculum. I will say that. I think there's just some kids who are like, I want you to show me exactly how to do this.
yeah, I don't
And
wanna risk messing it up at
right.
all
And
by
like that's not
that.
what we're like, we can't, I can't, that's not what we're doing.
Right.
And then, but then, because they are kind of like problem solving it on their own, they might not always be happy with like the finished product. And that's a hard thing for them to
Mhm.
accept, that like that's just not the way art always works.
I don't know, how do you present that to them as it looks different, but that doesn't make it a failure, you know?
Right. I mean, just like that, basically.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we make a lot of different things. We look at a lot of different artists and artworks, and I think just like that. I mean, they don't accept that always,
I
which,
can imagine.
it is what it is. Like, you may not love this piece. That's okay. You
Yeah.
can try. I mean, we're going to make something else. Not everything you make is going to be your favorite thing. Sometimes I make stuff that I hate in the
Mhm.
end. But that's not the point. Like, that's not why we're making. And that's a hard thing it's so hard as a teacher, because like, I mean, yes, that is the point of art. Like, art is visual. People want art that is visually appealing to them. That doesn't necessarily mean like objectively it's visually appealing, but not always the point, but a lot of times that is the point.
Sure.
Um, but just like the process of making it is just as important. But I don't want to lie to them and be like, it doesn't matter at all what it looks like, because that is
Sure.
like the whole point
Well,
of
and it
art.
obviously matters to them too, so you don't want
Right.
to right.
Right.
Yeah.
Accepting that sometimes it just doesn't turn out the way that you thought it would, and that's just part of the process. And like you said, developing grit, like, okay, now I know what not to do.
And to even just set some expectations too of, you're little and
And your
you
mom's gonna love it.
yeah.
So
I still have the pea pods,
mm,
I still
oh,
have
they're so adorable.
yep, I've got them, on the window of my office, and they still get pointed out and there was a taco too, I think growing up.
Yes.
Oh, yep, I've got the taco still. Even with your own earrings and painting and, you've been doing this for years now, how have you seen your own skill in that shift or change or, I
Mm.
feel like you have to have learned so much along the
Oh
way.
yeah. Oh
And
gosh, yeah. I mean, a lot of it's just trial and error,
Mhm.
I know what, just like my students, I know what doesn't work. I'll make designs, and then I'm wholesaling those, and I'm making it over and over and over. And I'm like, I want to make something new. I want to make something different. I want to make something harder to make, keeping it fresh for myself creatively, but also challenging myself. And a lot of times I still make stuff that I hate. And that's okay. That's part of the process. I'm always learning stuff.
Where do you find inspiration for new designs as many times as you've done this? I know what I've witnessed of your stuff is you have a really nice blend of maybe what's interesting you from an artistic
Mm.
level, but also an awareness of kind of what pop culture is talking about. But then you also do like you did a series a few years ago that reminded me of like Portuguese tile and like
Mhm.
and that were just absolutely gorgeous. So how do you kind of balance that?
As lame as this sounds, like, I love some Pinterest. And I mean, like, I'm always looking for ideas for art projects for the kids.
Mhm.
And then I'm also just anything that's visually interesting to me, like, I take a picture of it. Part of my process is just like looking through patterns and colors and motifs that interest me or that are visually appealing to me, and then just sketching ideas or shapes.
Porcelain, you have so much, you have so much room there,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, you can make anything.
Whatever.
Anything you can draw on a piece of paper, you can make out of clay. Almost anything. I mean, I'll draw exactly what I want it to look like, cut it out, and then use that as a template to like trace pieces out of clay. I feel like it's all sometimes more challenging to like narrow down what I do want to make than it is to like come up with ideas for new things to make. And then also, you know, in that process, deleting things that I've made previously. I'm like, I can't make 400 different pieces. So what am I going to remove? What am I going to stop making?
Oh, interesting. How do you decide what to let go of?
I mean, honestly, just like what I'm tired of, like what I personally don't like anymore. Like, I don't want to make that anymore. I've made that too
Good
many
or
times. I mean,
yeah,
and obviously if it's not
sure,
selling.
sure. What's the strangest place you ever got inspiration from for your earrings or jewelry?
Strangest, I don't know. Strangest.
I took pictures once of a kind of an ugly chair, honestly, in a bank lobby, but the pattern on the upholstery was
Ah,
just so strange. I was like, I wonder if I could make this with like quilt this somehow and
okay.
build it out geometrically flat that way. Like that was a
Sure. Yeah.
unexpected source of inspiration was that ugly chair.
I'm trying to think if I have looked. I don't know if there's anything that's like, I made Tiger King earrings, so that's about as.
Yeah, that was
But
those
like
are
sometimes I just made a bunch of Beetlejuice earrings because I was excited about Beetlejuice, and then they were like surprisingly popular. Like I kind of just made them for fun because I liked them.
with the kiln in your backyard. Are you able to use that for more than just the earrings, or do you have other designs for that, or things you'd like to use expand
I
beyond the
mean, I have a pottery wheel that I haven't used in many years because I have big ideas. Like, yes, I'm sometimes I make other things. I make wall hangings or ornaments or little jewelry dishes or ring holders and things like that. But it really does all come down to time. Like, I feel now like I'm in the same space I was in before I went part-time teaching. Like I
interesting?
don't have any more time.
You're at
Yeah,
capacity.
I'm over capacity. I have more to do than I have time to do. So it's kind of a struggle, especially at this time of year, like before the holidays. I feel very slammed.
There's been a few people I've interviewed who just have different maybe rituals or just things they know that they have to do to get into a creative space. Do you have anything like that?
Well, I mean, at this point, like I try to make little bits of time. I honestly am never short on ideas.
Mhm.
That's not my issue. It's having time to bring them to fruition. So I do try, like, if I finish, you know, a big batch of wholesale orders and I just had two events and I know I've got a week before, I'll try to like spend that week just like tinkering and making things for fun, making things that I want to make, making things
Yeah.
that are not for a specific order. A lot of times in the summer, because I'm not teaching, I'll have time to do that.
It's so interesting because you with what you make and having the business attached to it, you just have such a specific process that you have figured out over these years that works
Mhm.
for you and supports what you need it to support, and it seems like it's so finely tuned.
It kind of has to be because it's such a long production cycle. The minimum 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then at the maximum, you know, it could take 4, 5, 6 weeks. I have to have like a really strict schedule because it's like, you know, you fire the kiln. If I fire it past 2 p.m., I can't even open it the next day. So that's like time lost, right?
Yeah.
I probably need like an assistant, but I'm like a control freak, so shooting myself in the foot, insist I'm gonna do it all. I'm gonna do it.
You know, there's creatives who their creativity and just experience and personality is such that that's the ideas, but they don't know how to give themselves the structure
Mm.
for the follow through. Never
Oh yeah.
mind
It's
rep
like all my friends, all my creative friends.
yeah, no, same.
Yeah,
So
that's like
it's
almost all artists. I don't know how I'm a type A artist, but I
yeah,
am. Like,
that's
I don't know how that happened.
good way to put it. Well, and so that's something that I've really struggled with is I'm wildly affected by my environment. I don't function well if it becomes too even just cluttered or chaotic. Start adding people and I begin to melt down completely.
Yeah.
And I was at a friend's studio a few months ago, and I was helping her with some stuff and just trying to help get her out the door on time for something. And we're walking around her studio, and she like dumps stain on some stuff and rubs it around, and is like, "Oh yeah, no, I think I like the way this is going." And like type A me is just going like, "How do I contain this?" But then
Yeah.
also having this moment of like, this isn't my space. This isn't my problem. This isn't even my time. Like, I don't care if we're late. This is her thing.
Oh, it
And
would totally bother me too. Like, I'd
yeah,
be like, "Ma'am, we have a schedule."
right, like, hello. And so I was able to kind of let go of it in that moment and just observe. And there was something so, I mean, for lack of a better word, childlike about the way she was just, this is what I feel like doing and testing and exploring and how I want to express this moment that I don't have access to very often because of my aversion to chaos and my
Yeah.
love of control. So I think that's part of what I find so fascinating about how you do things is because there is this type A process to it that you've had to build in order to be successful, in order to run the business side of it. And yet you are still producing, I mean, imaginative, beautiful, one of a kind pieces that you aren't going to see in other spaces. And you're kind of a unicorn to me. Like, how are you doing it?
I am very like goal oriented. I'm just prolific in making. Like, I do get hyper fixated and hyper focused on things. Scheduling and timekeeping maybe to the extreme, but like I will back schedule every day from like the day that I need to ship it out or
Mhm.
the day that the events or whatever it is, and then going backwards like this is what I need to do every day. And if I mean most of the time I if anything I get ahead of schedule and then I'm like it's like a reward for me because then I do get that like creative loosey goosey. I don't have anything scheduled today. I can just make for fun time. So that's like almost my motivation is like to get ahead of my schedule. But it's also a curse because I can definitely get tunnel vision.
Mhm.
And, my studio is in my house. So if I wake up at 4:30 in the morning and can't go back to sleep, I will absolutely come down here and work. I don't know if that's probably not a good thing. Like I should not do that. I should.
If you can't sleep, you can't sleep. And it's
Yeah.
not like
No.
you're gonna spend that time with your family or you know what I mean? It's not
Right.
like
Yeah,
you're gonna do
exactly.
anything
Yeah.
else.
It can be hard. I mean, it can be hard for me to have boundaries sometimes about.
Well, and that was my next question as someone else who can also hyperfixate. Like once I get onto a thing, like it's all I want to do. Like I
Mhm.
get and then I get burned out and then I get discouraged and then I don't want to do it anymore and
Yeah.
then it sits and so, you know what I mean? So that's
Yes.
another piece of it that I'm trying to still find the balance for myself of how do I sustain the inspiration but also keep the work regular and build
Mhm.
that structure for myself when I don't necessarily have deadlines. They're all imaginary and made up in my head.
I think for me, a lot of it's just out of necessity. Like, I have to go to school.
Mhm.
I have to be there at a specific time. And then I get home at a specific time. And so sometimes, even when I would prefer to be in my studio working, I've got something that I need to work on or want to work on, I can't. So I don't know, maybe that delay, like the delay of like, well, I have to be at school and same with like family obligation. Like I have this barrier in my mind of like, I can't work after 4:15. Like I can't. So I feel like I have to focus in the time that I have, even if it's only, I mean, it's only 3 hours a day, which is
Mhm.
not enough time, but I'm like, I have to get all this done in this time. And then I feel, I guess, like it's okay to not work after that or to not work on the weekends or I don't know. I also have like the experience of traveling and doing art fairs, in-person events. I'm sitting in a tent all day and I can't do anything else. I just have to sit there. And that's
Mhm.
really hard. Like I would never do that at my house. Like I would never
Do you bring
just
a
sit.
sketchbook or anything so that you can, like, work on ideas, or how do
Oh no.
you?
It's not possible. I mean, I'm too busy. Like I'm making sales, people are in
Yeah.
my booth. Like you have to be engaged with people,
Oh, yeah.
which is also very draining for me because I am an introvert. But also, like, I am just sitting there. I'm just sitting there for like really long periods of time. Kind of good for me, I guess.
Yeah, kind of
Um,
forced relaxation of sorts.
Kind of, yeah. Like I'm working, but it's like I honestly don't know. I mean, I'm very stressed out. I don't know. I don't know if that comes across, but I'm always very stressed out. So it's not, I don't have it all together. I don't have it like perfect. It's
Sure.
always in there, open tabs in my brain.
Well, it sounds like you've built, like we were talking about, the processes and then doing something that you can do piecemeal, small pieces
Hmm.
at a time. And quilting's is similar to that in that, like,
Yeah.
I this morning, like, I sat down, I got a block done, and it was about 15, 20 minutes, and I'll
Hmm.
do a couple, and I can pop in, spend a little bit of time to myself. It's quiet, and I imagine that the earrings are, the jewelry is similar because it's it's so tactile and process based.
Hmm.
I'm cutting, I'm measuring, I'm sewing, I'm stitching, my hands are all over it. So there's a very meditative quality to that
Hmm.
for me, but then on the flip side of that, if I start to get too mechanical, I start to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Does that happen for you if you, like, are too in the zone that you're like, "How did I get this far down, and why does that look like that?"
Yeah, well, for me, it's more like, well, I guess a lot of what I do is kind of mechanical because I'm making the same thing over and over and over. But I will definitely get, if I'm too deep in it and I'm been doing it for too long, I'll start breaking things like because I work with greenware, I don't
Oh, that's
fire.
nice.
Okay, so typically with ceramics, you would make your piece and then you would fire it, and that would be bisque. They call
Mhm.
that bisqueware, and then
Okay.
you would glaze your bisqueware. But I skip that. I don't do that. I paint on the clay in its raw state, like dried clay. So it's essentially dirt. It's
Okay.
extremely fragile.
Uh-huh.
And so it's very easy to break it, but it does save me a lot of time in the long end because I'm not doing an extra firing. Sometimes if I'm handling things, I paint things. I paint every piece, usually with underglazes, and then I paint 3 coats of clear glaze on top of that.
Mhm.
And I paint everything like on painter's tape because otherwise it moves. And you don't paint the back. The back is lays on the kiln shelf. So, but sometimes when I'm like peeling the painted pieces off the painter's tape or cleaning off the backs, like cleaning, sponging off any glaze on the back, like I'll just start breaking things.
Mhm.
That's really frustrating.
I bet.
Or like, yeah, when I have a piece, like after I cut the pieces, I got to smooth them out. I got to clean off the edges also with a wet sponge and I'll I feel like I start breaking things, just making stupid mistakes.
Mm.
I don't know if it's a bad habit, but when I'm working, I continuously have podcast music or like Real Housewives or Bachelor, something mindless
Yes.
playing
Yep.
while I'm working that is consuming my brain. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not thinking about what I'm doing really. I'm just sort of like in robot mode.
Yep.
And that sounds terrible, but I really enjoy it.
No, I don't think it sounds terrible at all. I think it sounds very relatable. I do something similar with either shows I've already seen, so I don't have to look
Yeah.
at it, and so I can just hear it and I know what's going on and stay engaged while I'm also staying engaged. But yeah, it gives my mind something else to just sort of latch onto so that
Yeah,
I'm not, because otherwise I'll spiral out into all sorts of
same.
ruminations about God knows
Yes,
what and ruin my
yes,
own life. So it's better if I have almost like a mental anchor of like,
yeah.
this is
Something to keep me rooted, like, in the activity I'm doing. And
yes.
then, like, hours can pass and I don't even notice. I'm like, "Oh my god, how
Yeah.
did it's already 4 o'clock," or
How did I
whatever,
get through 3 seasons of 30 Rock already?
Oh, yeah. I have watched the amount of TV I watch is I have a lot of streaming services, but it's for work.
Yeah, no, it's very, like, I can't sit down and I have never been able to get through
No.
Downton Abbey. I can't do it. Like, I physically can't sit and watch it. But if it's on in the background, honestly, I still couldn't finish it. I only made it I made it, like, halfway through the 1st season,
Yeah.
and I was like, it's just so
I
many things.
haven't really I really don't watch TV outside of my studio because of the same I can't just unless it's like, an activity, like like we're
Yeah,
watching a movie with a
yeah.
family, like I can't just like sit and watch a show.
I've never been
Like
one
I
to
need
sit
something
and
for
be
my
like,
hands to do.
by myself, I'm just gonna sit and watch this. Like,
Right,
I would never choose to watch TV by myself.
right,
If like as a twosome or as a fam, we are watching something, then
right.
yes, but no, TV is to keep my brain occupied in the background.
Same.
I think I counted up all of my earrings because I was trying to decide which ones to wear, and I think I'm at 7 pairs. I have
Oh,
7
wow.
yeah.
You're a collector.
I
That's
am, no, I love them. This was exactly perfect. So thank you for
Yeah,
chatting with me about all of this. And I will pull up my closing questions,
okay.
my Lipton-esque approach. I have always loved Inside the Actors Studio since I was
Oh,
10.
yeah.
I
I
could that's another one I could watch just on repeat
same.
in the background. Yeah. So I wanted to do my own, but not quite so many questions.
Okay.
So, what is a piece of art, painting, sculpture, music, movie, whatever? What is a
Okay.
piece of art that nearly always moves you?
I'm not a very, like, emotional person when it comes to things of that nature, and this is controversial of an artist to say, but I don't think I've ever been, like, emotionally moved by a piece of art.
Interesting.
Movies, yes, for sure, movies and music too. Just because I just went to the 20-year anniversary show of a Postal Service and Death
Jealous.
Cab's transatlanticism
Wow.
and food service give up. It was very moving. It was very nostalgic. So I'll say those two albums.
I
But they're,
remember those very well.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
very defining
Yeah.
in
No,
my
that
adolescence.
feels like my senior year of college. Like,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
If you could collaborate with anyone alive, who would
Mm.
it be?
I did a collaboration once with an illustrator friend of mine, and they turned out great. It was like one of my favorite collections. So I guess I would go that route, maybe an illustrator, Lisa Congdon. She's an illustrative artist who does a lot of cool things. She's got kind of a similar style, just like kind of whimsical and colorful. And
If you could give your younger self a piece of encouragement, what would that be?
I think I would say to myself, it's not that hard to be an artist. It's not as hard as everybody. I do wish that I would have started the business sooner. I also feel like just the timing of like when I graduated college, about that time was sort of like the introduction of social media was just starting to get big. And I do feel like I kind of missed a little window there of like opportunity when it wasn't so hard
Mhm.
to reach your audience. And I wish that, yeah, I do wish,
Jack
yeah,
up the algorithms and make them work against
yes,
you unless you pay for it.
exactly. And I
Mhm.
also think I went so hard at with teaching for so long that I did totally burn myself out. And so I kind of wish that I maybe would have had a better balance earlier on.
What is a different creative expression or medium or what have you that you would love to try?
Constantly think about painting, like getting back into painting, but that's something I've already done. But one thing I would like to try is maybe metal smithing or metal work because I do use metal in my pieces, but I would like to maybe that's something I've always wanted to learn, like a
Mhm.
skill that I could incorporate and make my own metal pieces. But that's like a
Good
whole
stuff.
nother skill set that I don't have. Maybe another message for your younger self. Cause like I think about what did I even do before I wasted a lot of life? Not wasted life, but like I had a lot of free time in my younger years. And I wish I would have used it to like develop more skills. Now, I don't have time to do that as much as I would like.
Youth and their time privileges. So my final question is, why is what you make important to you?
It's fulfilling just to have somebody out there say like, I like this enough to pay for it. As an artist, that's a very fulfilling experience to have. Like to have people want to own something you made.
Mhm.
But on like a simpler level, like it's also very satisfying to be able to make a living as an artist and to make money off of it. That's something I never really considered myself doing. And I mean that I would be lying if I said that that was not a motivating factor. Like being able to support myself and my family, my art, that is important to me. Like to be able to say that I did that.
That's huge. Yeah, I can
It's huge.
absolutely see
Yeah.
why. Yeah,
But it is also just satisfying. Like I just like making things and then looking at them after. And when you make something and then afterwards you're like, I actually like that. I
Mhm.
like what I made.
Yeah,
That's special.
I agree. And tell the folks where to find you and your jewelry and follow all the things.
Okay, well, the easiest way is just crownandheart.com. That will take you to my website, but my Instagram handle is Crown and Heart KC. I mean, I pretty much post like all my in-person events and everything on Instagram, so that's probably the best place to go. And then my website, I always tell people to people love to buy things on Etsy.
Mhm.
I think it's like a feeling of safety. Just FYI, every artist prefers that you buy directly from them.
Noted. That's good
So,
intel. Where did the name Crown and Heart come from?
well, that's my maiden name. My maiden name is Crownheart.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So, that when I first started teaching, I was Miss Crownheart, which is like the best art teacher
It's
name
a
ever.
valiant name too. It's
I
like
know.
gives me like big King Arthur,
Yes.
vibes.
And I loved my name but my husband is an immigrant, so I felt like it was important that I take his name. Our kids have his name. There's not a lot of Hartians, but I wanted to keep it in some way, so that was sort of like
Yeah,
my way to hang on to it.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
With Heartian too, you still kind of have that heart sound at the beginning.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
There's some similarities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being on my little podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.